AITA wife is mad that I'm hesitant to use our 2-year-old savings account to buy a new car. Hi, it's been an ongoing debate, but I'm really trying hard to put money away for our daughter. My mother passed when I was 18, and my father's a drunk mom put away as much as she could, left us with a house, had insurance that paid out and gave me the start in life I needed without her. I don't make a ton of money, but over the past 2 years I've managed to put away about $5,000 for her. I'm kind of angry at myself for not saving more, but it's still something, and it's in the highest interest savings account I can find. I just want her to have a good life, free of too many worries about the small stuff. Perhaps I can help her with a deposit for a house one day, tuition, her own car or something like that. My wife doesn't like that I save for her. She says we have things we need now, that are much more important. We don't own a car, don't need one for the most part, but my wife's starting a business and will need one. She doesn't understand why you should save. Her parents never saved for her and don't help her financially. I don't really want a car. She got even more mad when I tried to meet her halfway and say, how about we pay our little one back over a year, and add the interest she would have had on the money if it had stayed in the bank. She said that's incredibly fucked up and how could I even suggest we pay interest to our daughter. I'm at a loss. I've never been great with money but I recognize how much having savings helps. AITA for being resistant to using our child's savings on ourselves. I recognize that money is just money and these barriers I've put up are artificial, but surely I'm doing the right thing? X200B. AITA after talking to my daughter's swim instructor's manager after she singled out my daughter and manager started crying. Tonight at my 4-year-old daughter's swim lessons the manager was floating in the pool watching the instructors. She noticed my daughter was being a bit more nervous than usual. She then proceeded to take her to a younger class with 2-year-olds. Obviously my daughter was confused and is quite a bit more advanced than that. She was pretty upset about it. I do agree my daughter was being a bit more nervous than usual, but in her defense her regular instructor was sick again. They never really have the same instructor. And on top of that there were 2 new boys looked to about 5 years old in her class and were being quite rowdy. Normally it was just her and another little girl. After the lesson was over my wife took our daughter to change and I got the attention of the manager that took her to the other class. And I politely asked to talk. I wasn't rude in any way I felt and just told her I didn't appreciate singling her out like that in the middle of class. She said she doesn't look ready to be in older class and is nervous. I mentioned the 2 new older boys and new instructors all the time. Was basically the end of the conversation. I wasn't happy about it. I left the pool and met wife in the lobby. She told me the manager was crying. I felt bad if that's the reason, but again I don't think I was rude about it in any way, just told her how it wasn't fair to my daughter Sovita. AITA for asking my sister-in-law to stop treating my son as if it's theirs. My 35M sister-in-law Laura 33F doesn't have a child. She's been through many miscarriages in the past, too. After my wife Madison 34F gave birth to our son Ethan, we allowed Laura to interact with him. We dropped him at her house if we wanted someone to babysit, etc. Whenever they came here, she played with him and all that. Yesterday, we dropped him at her place again and when we arrived, she was playing with him. We just remained there for a while and talked while she played with him. I heard her saying, "Where's your mother?" "Your mother's right here," referring to herself. I did not like that. Madison did not either, but it got worse. She said, "And your father's here to play with you as well," referring to her husband. I was about to say something as I was shocked, but then I realized that Ethan now called them Mama and Dada for the first time. The first time he ever said his parents' name, and it was theirs. He'd never called us that before. Madison began to cry a lot while I got furious. I called Laura a fucking bitch and asked her what she's thinking to call them that. Her husband got mad and they began to argue, saying that he's as good as their son, etc. Madison accused her of being a goddamn backstabber, and in the end we took Ethan away from them by asking them to not treat my son as if it's theirs. Laura was crying, and her husband was shouting at us while we left. I was wondering whether I overreacted. I know that they don't have children, so did I do anything wrong? AITA X200B. AITA for banning myself from babysitting after she put breast milk in my child's ears. I have a 7-year-old daughter, Rose. Rose is prone to ear infections. She had a double ear infection recently and couldn't go to school on Friday because she had a low-grade fever. I had to go to work and couldn't get a babysitter, so my sil offered to keep her for me. Everything seemed to go well until I picked Rose up and my sil told me she had put breast milk she has a 12-week-old in Rose's ears to help with the ear infection. She even offered to send some home in a dropper bottle so I can keep giving it to her. She claims it's a great remedy and that Rose was already starting to feel better. I couldn't believe that she did this to my child without asking. I yelled at her for it, We argued, and I told her she will no longer be able to babysit me around Rose unsupervised. Now Rose is upset that she can't go to her auntie's house anymore, and my brother called me to say that I upset his wife. She was just trying to help, and that I overreacted. This is a woman putting her bodily fluids in my child's ear. I think I have a right to be upset. It seems that everyone is against me on this, so I wanted to know if I was the asshole for banning her from babysitting or being near Rose unsupervised. AITA for canceling my best friend's bachelorette party after she fired me as a bridesmaid. Gonna try and sum this up the most I can. I am a full-time student, so I am currently living off student loans and what little hours I can work outside of school. I have spent around $1,000 on my best friend's wedding so far, $350 on the bridesmaid's dress, $350 on the flight home to attend the wedding as I'm away for school, and about $100 on the gift I sent for her bridal shower. The Mo is currently very pregnant and having a rough time. She asked me to plan the bachelorette party. I agreed. I planned it perfectly and had it as a surprise. I messaged the other girls the plan. When they all agreed, I went ahead and booked my idea. I spent this is on top of the $1,000 I spent earlier, $400 on a limo to go bar hopping. The bride loves bar hopping, and I booked us a $700 Airbnb to crash in afterwards. As of right now, the other bridesmaids did not chip in. This was out of pocket, but they said they would pay me back later. About a month later, I and two other girls got kicked from the bridal party group chat along with a paragraph from the bride saying we were no longer invited because we weren't honoring her wishes. When asked, she didn't answer what she meant or what we had done wrong. 2 days pass and she adds us back to the chat and apologizes, saying she's just stressed. We all talk about it and made up. Yesterday same thing happened, except this time I'm the only one removed with a paragraph going off on me, telling me I'm not respecting her or her wishes, that she wishes she never invited me or asked me to be a bridesmaid. When asked what happened or what I did wrong, again radio silence. Today she messages me apologizing, saying she's sorry for lashing out and that she'd like me there but not as a bridesmaid as it would make her uncomfortable, and that I'm not allowed to wear the dress I had already bought as it's a bridesmaid's dress. I told her I respectfully declined as I couldn't afford another dress as I've already spent too much on this wedding, and that I didn't want to make her uncomfortable on her big day. She then lashes out telling me I should just take more from my student loans to buy a second dress. So with that, I went and canceled the Airbnb and the limo. I told the other bridesmaids what had happened and they agreed it was fair. One of them must have told the bride about the secret bachelorette party, as she messaged me telling me I'm an asshole and I've ruined her entire wedding, as she now doesn't have time to book a new bachelorette party in time, and she nor any of the other bridesmaids have the money or savings to book anything. I also managed to get the refund for my flight, so really I'm only out about $450 for a wedding I'm no longer invited to. AITA for canceling the party and getting the money back. AITA for choosing a name my stepsister had in mind for my daughter. So, I 25F have been married to my husband for 3 years. I have known him since high school. I recently just had a baby, and we decided not to tell anyone the name till the baby was born. My stepsister was also pregnant. We both had very similar names in mind. I liked Mary Kay. My stepsister liked the names Mary Grace. My stepsister did choose the name first, but our names weren't identical, and she still insisted I didn't use Mary Kay. Still, we did anyways, and when I announced, my stepsister called us and had a cow. She said we disrespected her knowing she picked the name first and now she has to choose a new baby such short notice. We reminded her that the names aren't identical and there is no reason to change, but she just got upset and hung up. Stepmom soon called us later backing up my sister, saying how childish we acted keeping it a secret so we could get our way, and she wanted to use that name after her grandmother death. They are all very upset with us. AITA for drinking on my designated driver nights. Me and my group of close friends goes out to drink reasonably often, and we all take turns being DD in a rotation of sorts. The issue for me is that I'm heavily visually impaired, to the point where I can't and never will be able to legally drive, even using bioptics or other assistive tech. Instead, on my nights, I pay for an Uber or taxi for all of us, which others have said is a completely acceptable option for them. The problem comes up with me drinking on my nights. Even though I'm not actually driving and can't reasonably be expected to, one of my friends expressed that it's not fair that I get to drink on my nights, when everyone else holds back on their nights. In my view, it's not unfair at all. If anyone else wanted to drink on their own night, they're more than welcome to pay for an Uber the way that I do every time it's my night. They just usually choose not to. Am I the asshole? I'm no alcoholic and am more than fine going through an event or outing without drinking or anything, but I also don't see the point in holding back when I reasonably could have won. AITA for embarrassing my nephew. English is not my first language. I teach boxing and my best student is my daughter, 16. She can easily kick anyone's ass and she even once won against me, though in my defense I was sick that day. Lol. Also, my daughter is the typical girly girl. She is beautiful, She likes wearing dresses and her favorite color is pink and she is always wearing makeup. This has made many people to underestimate her because for some reason people don't think such a girly girl is capable of boxing. My daughter is also not one to brag, so people don't know how good she actually is. I have a nephew 17 who started boxing about 6 months ago, and a few days ago he and a few of his friends decided to come to my gym and I started teaching them. Yesterday I saw them making fun of the girls in the gym and telling them things like, why don't you try cooking or knitting instead? Those girls have recently started boxing, so they weren't exactly good at it. So I had an idea. I asked my nephew if he would like to have a match against my daughter, or maybe he is afraid of losing to a girl. He said okay, let's do it. My daughter kicked his ass so quickly. She usually holds back against the ones that are not as good as her, but this time she didn't. After she was done I laughed and told my nephew that maybe he should try cooking instead and leave these sports to girls. He didn't say anything and just left. Later I received a call from my brother calling me an asshole and telling me what I did was unfair and cruel to embarrass him like that. AITA for expressing to my in-laws that I don't want to be their server for their family's Christmas dinner. So, I'm a newlywed, and my in-laws are rolling into town for Christmas and staying my husband's in my new house. They mentioned wanting to dine out for Christmas dinner, but I offered to whip up a home-cooked feast instead. Unfortunately, they turned down the offer. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I am currently working as a server in our town after recently being laid off from my corporate job. Lucky for me, the restaurant is closed on Christmas Eve and Christmas. Well, turns out my mother-in-law had other plans. She called up my workplace without speaking to me beforehand and asked for me to be their server for their entire Christmas dinner. I found out through my husband that I'd be playing the role of their server for their festive family celebration, and my Christmas gift would be a sweet tip and takeout from my restaurant. Seems a bit odd, especially since our restaurant isn't even open on Christmas Eve or Christmas, and I'd be available to spend time with them on those days. They're scheduling this dinner the day before we close and making it their designated family celebration. I politely declined because, let's be real, being excluded from Christmas dinner while working as their server? That's a hard pass for me. Unfortunately, I was told that I was being dramatic and there's nothing weird about me being their server for their family's Christmas dinner. Thoughts, anyone? AITA for getting upset when my partner packs her lunch for the next day before we've even had a chance to eat our dinner. Normally, I'm the one who cooks because I enjoy it and I'm the better cook. When my partner gets home from work, the meal is usually ready or close to ready. She sets the table, it's just us, no kids, and usually she will wash her lunchbox and immediately pack her lunch for TMRW straight from the stove. This is done before we've even had a chance to sit down and eat the meal I've cooked. I don't know why exactly, but this behavior really annoys me. She says it's because she's tired after eating and doesn't want to do it then. But I've pointed out that she can pack her lunch after she has washed the dinner plates and while I am putting the leftovers into Tupperware containers. This has also happened once or twice when we've had guests for dinner. To me, making her lunch plate before anyone else has a chance to eat the food feels like self-serving behavior. She's literally serving herself first. Maybe it's petty, but it bothers me, and when I mentioned it to her, she got defensive and said that I was creating a fake problem. While it's not a big issue, it is an action that makes me feel not good, and she has the ability to change her behavior but refuses to. AITA, and this is not a thing, or should she wait until after we eat to pack her lunch? AITA for going on a pre-planned and paid-for vacation after my BF's father passed away. My BF 30M and I 28F have been dating for 4 years and have been living together for the past 18 months. Our lease is up at the end of this month and we were hoping to have purchased a house by now, but that didn't happen. So we decided to just renew our lease and keep the house hunt going. I've also had a very stressful year career-wise, so this fall a few friends and I booked a girls' trip to Mexico for a yoga wellness retreat. We are leaving next Thursday and we are all really looking forward to it. The week before Thanksgiving, my BF's dad unexpectedly passed away. My BF immediately flew out to be with his mom and siblings. He ended up staying there for Thanksgiving instead of coming home, which I completely understand. Due to the holiday and scheduling conflicts with other relatives, the funeral wasn't scheduled until the Friday after I leave for my trip. When he told me the date of the funeral, I reminded him that I would be gone. He asked if there was any way I could reschedule the trip or get a refund, and I told him I would look into it. But the trip was booked through a group rate and was $100 non-refundable, and none of my friends wanted to go through the hassle of rescheduling, which sucks, but I get it. I saved a lot of money to take this trip and really need the escape, and if I cancel I don't get the money back at all. I explained all of this to my BF and he asked me what I was going to do. I apologized and told him that I think I am going to go on the trip because I don't want that money to go away for nothing. All of this was over the phone because he was still with his family and he told me we would talk more when he got back. When he came home we talked more about it and I apologized so many times when I was explaining why I was still going on the trip. He seemed to understand and told me it was fine. But when I asked him when we were going to sign the papers to renew our lease because I want that done before I leave, he said he's not doing that anymore. He said that he came back to figure some things out at work and then he's flying back for the funeral and will be staying with his mom while they figure some things out. I asked him why he didn't talk to me about this first and he said that he's talking to me about it right now. He said his mom needs help so he's going to stay with her. I asked him what I am supposed to do about a place to live and he told me to figure it out with my friends on our vacation. I told him that he's putting me in a bad situation and that he seemed fine with me going on the trip and missing the funeral. He said he wasn't going to beg me to cancel my trip and that I made that decision on my own. So he's making this decision for himself. I told him he's being an and should have talked to me about this first. He said I'm the one who prioritized drinking on a beach over being at his dad's funeral, so if anyone is an here, it's me. AITA for going to my sister's competitor when my daughter wanted to take ballet classes. My 34M sister 28F is one of the owners of a local ballet school where she is also a teacher. My daughter 5F was interested in trying ballet, mostly from seeing her aunt dance and talking about how she must take ballet. However, I chose to take my daughter to get a trial class in another school. A brief context: my mother is a piano teacher and she decided to teach my sister and I when we were kids, and it was a terrible experience to me, at least because it was clear that she couldn't separate her role as a mother and as a teacher, and she'd be hard on me in a way that she wasn't to her other students. That's not to say I think my sister wouldn't be able to keep things professional, it's just that I thought it was important to create a distance in this context. I didn't think to let my sister know beforehand about this. After all, it was just a trial class, and my daughter could not even be interested in continuing afterwards. Yet my sister found out that I took my daughter to her competitor. It's not that big of a town and there are basically 2 schools around, so news fly fast. My sister called me to clear things up, and I could tell she was very hurt. I tried to explain my reasoning, and she said the right thing would be to call her so she wouldn't need to find out from somebody else. She also says it creates an image that her own family doesn't trust in her abilities as a teacher, which I think was nonsense. AITA here? AITA for having the power to my apartment disconnected after being asked to leave. 18 months ago I moved into my best friend's apartment because she was struggling to pay rent. Having a pretty good income, I paid the majority of the bills, including all of the electric, heating, internet, food costs and half of rent. I was paying roughly $1,800 per month while she was paying $500 per month. 10 months ago my roommate's mother moved in with us and the financials didn't change. I was still paying half of rent, all of the electric, heating, food for 3 people and internet. Her mother paid nothing. My roommate met a guy about a month ago from the other side of the country, and this week they had planned on him coming to stay with us for 2 weeks. I was not happy about it. It was clear he didn't like me when we chatted on the phone. I digressed and said whatever. 24 hours before he was set to arrive, her mother started an argument with me. Her mother is irrational and rude. After a bit of attempting to appease her, and it not working, she told me, if you have a problem, you can leave, and I said, when do you want me to leave? And she said, right now, so I packed a bag and left. 2 hours later the police showed up to my parents' house to speak to me about the happenings of the night. Her mom claimed that I made her feel scared and demanded a police officer escort me to retrieve my belongings from the apartment. The police told me I don't need them there to retrieve my stuff, and if they try to block me from getting my stuff, to call them. Last night I brought a buddy and a truck, and in an hour and a half we moved all my belongings out from the apartment. Today I called the electric company to have them cancel my electric as I no longer live there. The electric company let me know that they will be shutting off the power to the apartment tomorrow and reminded me that if the pipes weren't full of antifreeze that they might burst. AITA for not giving my roommates a heads up that they will be shutting off the power. Added for clarity, I am not on the lease. AITA for keeping asking the girl I'm seeing about her name tattoo. So I'm 27, am dating this girl 24F for about a month now, and the last time we got together I noticed she has a very small tattoo on the back of her neck. I had never seen it before because it's covered by her hair. Now here's the weirdest thing, she has my name tattooed. So obviously the first thing I thought was that she made a tattoo after me, which would be insane given we're only going out for a few weeks and this is still a casual relationship. But she told me that it's not about me, it's about someone else that has the same name. Just a coincidence. I looked closer and noticed the tattoo seems old and faded, so it definitely wasn't done recently. Either way, I was obviously intrigued, so I asked, is someone in your family? And she just said no, and didn't provide any additional information. So it was clear she didn't want to tell me who this person is or was. But now there's suddenly this missing piece of information about her and I simply can't let this go. So I kept asking her, was it a friend? Was it an ex? Until she lost her patience and told me it's none of my business. AITA for keep pushing her to tell me who it was. Also worth saying, she has no other tattoos besides this one, so it seems even more meaningful. AITA for leaving the room when my nephew started crying. My 27F parents celebrate an early Christmas so everyone could actually be together. Some of us are busy during the holidays with work. This included my sister Amy 29F and her family as well. She has a 6-month-old son, Andy. Apparently he had come down with something because he was a bit restless the whole time. However, at a point he started crying like crazy. Amy said this is something called colic. He was screaming so much I felt like my head would explode. I excused myself and said I really couldn't stand the sound. Amy told me I couldn't be serious. I asked her what she meant. She said I was a horrible aunt because I barely spent any time with Andy since he was born, and I only cared about my job and changing my girlfriends every week. I told her I didn't like kids crying and her child was now screaming at the top of his lungs. I asked her not to bring any personal weight into this situation. She called me an uptight. My parents agree with her. Was I an AITA for letting my son eat the stew my stepdaughter prepared for her friends. I have been married to my wife for 5 months, living together for almost a year before marriage. My stepdaughter Ann 16F used to split time between her parents but is currently with us full-time as her father will be overseas until August. I also have a son, Leo 17 meters, who lives mostly with my ex-wife and with me on weekends. The kids go to different schools and have a decent relationship. My wife and Ann are great cooks. My wife's parents came from another country and she and Ann regularly make exotic dishes from their homeland which are delicious. Both my son and I appreciate the dishes though we still have problems learning what is what. A few days ago Leo stopped by for something he left. Nobody was home so he let himself in. Leo said there was a big pot of stew on the stove and it smelled delicious and he asked if he could have some. My wife or Ann often made a huge batch of food when they cook, so it was nothing surprising. I told Leo to go ahead and just leave some for us. Now Leo is a wrestler and he eats a lot. A while later he sent me a photo, showing me how much stew was left in the pot. I could tell there was at least 5 servings left, so I thought nothing of it. An hour later Ann called me, upset. She asked if I had eaten the stew she made. It was a special recipe from her grandma and she invited her friends over to try it. She said the stew was supposed to feed 9 people and she invited 6 friends but someone obviously had eaten almost half of her stew. I told her it was Leo and apologized, telling her she could order pizza for her friends and I would pay for it, and said it was poor compensation for her friends looking forward to her stew which she spent hours preparing but she did take my offer. When I later apologized and had Leo call to apologize himself, she said she accepted our apologies though she has been rather quiet around me. My wife later told me I should not just allow Leo to eat whatever he wants in our kitchen as sometimes she and Ann have plans for their dishes. I think it's completely ridiculous that Leo is not allowed to eat things from his own father's kitchen and if my wife or Ann has a special plan for their food, they should put a note on it. Otherwise, things in the kitchen should be up for grabs as the kitchen is a communal space for food and I pay for most of the groceries. I think if Leo is not allowed to have the food then it's like he's not part of the family. I am willing to talk to him about portion control but other than that I think he should be able to eat what he wants in the kitchen unless there's a note saying not to. AITA X200B X200B. AITA for making it clear that if he keeps the grandkids away then he will not be getting an inheritance. I will try to keep this short. My son and his wife home needed repairs. Before living together we had a good relationship. The problem came when his wife wouldn't follow the home rules. They are pretty simple like clean up after yourself, don't be loud at night and the big one was no drinking in the home. No alcohol in the home. We made this really clear and my son knows his mother has trauma related to alcohol. We informed Dill in general terms also. The first few months seemed fine and it turned for the worse when the weather got cold. We couldn't prove it at the time but we were sure they were drinking. It came to head when cleaning my wife found wine in the attic. She was pissed and poured it out. Apparently it was a $300 bottle and it caused a huge fight between her and Dill. We let them stay until the renovations were done and they have been out 2 weeks ago. Relationship has been tense and I figured we just need time apart. My son met up with me and told us we can't see our grandkids anymore. That the incident made him rethink our relationship. I told him that was bullshit, that he knew the one big rule in the home, cause stress to his mother my wife. He told me it was final and I told him if he goes through with this he will be out of the will. This started another argument and he is pissed at me. Edit the wine was open. Edit 2 I called my sister, and asked her to tell me to track down the price of the wine. My wife sent a picture of the bottle when this happened. You were right, it wasn't 300 but around 25. I need to talk to my son and find out why she lied about that. AITA for mentioning I 47 meters would cook for my wife if she 44F worked and I didn't. I've never been one to really complain about her not cooking. She is a som and we do have 3 kids 7, 10, 16 that she naturally tends to when I'm at work. I leave at 5 a.m. and get home at 531-hour drive each way and 10-hour shift. We text off and on all day and she always knows when I'll be home. but 95 of the time I leave at 4:30 and always come straight home. I bring in roughly $200K a year. Rarely has she cooked on a regular basis and is typically fend for yourself. It is what it is at this point, but sometimes I'm just dead and would like dinner made or in the oven when I get home, and tonight was one of those nights. I asked on the way home if she would put some chicken in the oven and make a salad, and she said okay. I get home and was eating the salad while the chicken finished cooking when she said better than last night or the night before or the night belt. Then I said or last month or last year. We are very playful in general, and up to this point it was lighthearted when she says well you can cook us dinner as well, to which I replied if you worked and I was at home I could. At that point the night was done. She was obviously irritated and said really? I explain I'm teasing. We were teasing but to no avail. AITA for saying that? AITA for moving out after my parents told me to give my space to my brother and his family. I have 27 live with my parents. I have a job and I have been helping them by paying rent and buying groceries. My brother is married and has 2 children. A 2-year-old and a newborn. He recently lost his job and has asked my parents if he can move back in until he is back on his feet. My parents told me that I would need to move out of the basement suite in the house and into my mom's hobby room while my brother and his family stay with them. I did not agree and they said it was their house and their rules. I don't really own a lot of stuff. Everything in the suite belongs to them. I don't even own my bed. I packed up my clothes and my laptop and I went to work like usual. I work out of town for 14 days, then I get 7 days off. While I was at work I booked an all-inclusive for my week off. It cost me less than rent and food at my parents' house. I told my parents my plans and they were cool with it. I started getting texts a few days ago asking where my rent and grocery money was. I said that I moved out, that if I wasn't loving there and eating there I wasn't going to be giving them money. They got really upset because they were counting on the money to help support my brother. They said that I moved out without giving notice. I said that they literally gave away my living space and that I didn't owe them anything if I wasn't there. I asked them how much they are charging my brother. I was giving them $1,800 a month Canadian money for rent and food, and I was only home a maximum of 14 days a month, usually less. My brother called me to say I was an ass for not helping him out. I pointed out that he hadn't sent our parents money when he was employed. He said that he had a family to support so he needed his money. He said if I came back he and his family would move upstairs and I could have my space back. I had actually done the math though. I can stay at all-inclusives which cover my room, maid service, food, alcohol, and entertainment for 2/3 of what I was paying my folks. And I don't have to live through Edmonton winters when I'm not working. I sent my parents $500 to help them with groceries, then I went to the beach. My parents, my brother, his wife, and a fair few of my other relatives are saying that I'm an asshole for abandoning them on a time of need. I think if I'm not there I shouldn't have to pay anything. AITA for not attending Thanksgiving, meeting my new niece 3 weeks after my child was stillborn. For context, my sister 28F, I 27F grew up very close, have remained so into adulthood. We were each other's maid of honor at our weddings. Our husbands are close friends now too. We have regularly gone out for double dates, even triple dates. Our brother, his fiancée for years. My sister I both got pregnant around the same time. This wasn't planned. Though some family members don't believe us. We got even closer through our pregnancies, if that was at all possible. I was due in early November, she in early Dec. Sadly, 3 weeks ago, at 39 weeks, I stopped feeling any movement from my baby. After my husband rushed me to the hospital, we found out our baby had passed away. We're still not sure why. My pregnancy was pretty normal. All scans were developmentally appropriate. We are paying for an autopsy though have still not received the full report back. We have an appointment urgent to explain the results the week after Thanksgiving. We'll have a memorial service for him after the holidays. My sister gave birth a few weeks early, about 10 days ago. We knew she was high risk of early labor. She now has a beautiful healthy baby girl. While I am filled with so much joy for her, I am also still so heartbroken because we should have both been holding our babies this holiday season. In an effort to still be supportive, my husband I prepaid for a 1-year diaper service. We both talked about wanting to do cloth diapering. She had cloth diapers on her registry. I thought this would take a huge load off her in the first year. I also sent a bouquet of flowers. My husband dropped off a load of diapers at their house before they got home from the hospital. I'm trying to be supportive as best I can, but I still cry every day after holding my still child in my arms just a few short weeks ago. Despite everything, my parents, sister, Bill, brother, fiancé still expect my husband and I to attend Thanksgiving. I've tried to explain that I know I'm not ready to be around a baby without launching into hysterics, which would undoubtedly ruin the holiday mood. I have started working on my grief with my therapist, but I don't get an appointment this week due to the holiday. I just haven't made that much progress yet. My explanations seem to fall on deaf ears. Are we assholes for not wanting to attend Thanksgiving? AITA for not buying the same gifts for my step-grandchild. My son has a 14-year-old daughter Claire and a 15-year-old stepdaughter. My son doesn't have a good financial situation, and while they do their best they can only afford necessities. A few days ago Clara was visiting us and we were talking. I asked her about school and she told me that she is having a lot of problems because she needs a computer for some of her homework and she needs to visit the library that is far away from their home to do her homework. Also, kids are making fun of her for not having a phone. As a grandmother I can't just step aside and watch my granddaughter struggle, so even though we, ourselves, don't have a very good financial situation, we used some of our savings to buy a MacBook, phone, headphones and a few school supplies for her, and she was obviously very happy when she received our gifts. However, this has caused problems because my Dill is mad that we didn't do the same for her daughter. We told her that instead of getting upset she can ask her child's grandparents to buy things for her, and she called us assholes. My son informed me that she has been trying to get Clara to share but they have been refusing to do so. AITA for not keeping my ex-wife's stuff for over 2 years while she figured it out. So me and my ex-wife were married for a little over a year when she came home from a girls' trip and decided she didn't want to be married anymore. Wouldn't really give me a reason for this, didn't want to discuss it unless it was with a therapist, which I didn't want to do unless she told me first because I didn't want to be blindsided by something with a stranger present. Long story short, I could have been a better husband, she could have been a better wife, but we separated, divorced, and that was fall of 21. Fast forward to now. We've had very minimal contact for taxes or mail, stuff like that, but have been very civil with each other. So this past summer I hadn't heard from her for months and wanted to clean out my garage. Some totes of clothes and decorations that I'll never use. So away it went to the trash or donated. Now when we first separated I gave her plenty of time and opportunity to remove her items from the house, anything that wasn't blandly mine like my PC or guns or stuff like that. I honestly just wanted her out of my life, so I told her to take whatever she wanted, even leaving the locks unchanged for a whole year after divorcing because up till then her name was still on the deed to the home. I guess she moved away after the divorce to another state. I'm unsure as I just didn't ask and didn't care. So recently she texted me and said she would be in town and asked if she could come get her stuff and remove some of the household items as well, like a gas grill and a table. Items we got when we were together and have been left with me and used by me for the past 2 years, and the items that I've gotten rid of. So am I the asshole for just telling her no? I don't want to be mean about it, but it's been 2 years since we divorced. How long was I supposed to hang on to this stuff? She never asked me to hang on to it for her. Plus the common house items that I've been using. Am I just supposed to let her have those and buy new stuff? I'm very confused about what she expected after 2 years of being divorced. Edit: there was a previously discussed time for her to get her stuff. I'm going through text messages trying to figure out what to tell her. It was last Christmas and she never showed up because she said she got caught up with family and had to fly to New York for the New Year's party. That was also the last time we spoke till now. AITA for not replacing a mattress after I got blood on it. I 25F was meant to be staying at my sister's house all of this week to catch up with her and spend time with our family, and she put me in her guest room. Early morning yesterday, I woke up to go to the toilet and noticed I started my period unexpectedly and that it was heavy. I had a quick shower, got myself cleaned up, put a pad on and went back to bed. When I woke up I saw there was a big period stain on the mattress protector, so I opened the mattress protector to look to see if it went on the mattress, and there was a small dot that came through. I told my sister and I said I was happy to replace the mattress protector as it's $30 and I can just clean the blood off the mattress. This has happened in the past sometimes, so I know how to clean blood off mattresses. My sister said along with replacing the mattress protector she doesn't want the mattress cleaned, she wants it replaced as she said the blood mark will still be seen and she doesn't want that. I said it's a small mark that I can clean and I'm not replacing the mattress. She had the ingredients I needed to get rid of the blood stain at home, so I grabbed them and started cleaning. I did this whilst she went to check on her kids. She sent me a link to a mattress which costs $250 even though I cleaned it. I told her I cleaned it and you can't see the mark anymore. I looked. My sister and I got in a heated argument and I decided I'm just going to cut the family visit short and go back to my apartment. Now, she's told everyone in our family and everyone is saying I'm being petty and an asshole because I should just replace the mattress. AITA for pointing out to my wife that my mother will never be her parent and she needs to stop. My mom 64 is polite and in general keeps a distance away from my wife 26. I know my wife has trouble with social interaction and they got off on a horrible start. My wife, I am going to call her Lily, was in foster care and never had a parental figure, and she went hard into trying to become my mom's kid. I think it would have happened if my wife let the relationship grow naturally, but she didn't take any of my warnings and bulldozed what my mom wanted. A few examples: she kept calling her mom even after she told her multiple times to call her by her name. Lily would make her uncomfortable, especially when she would ask my mom very personal question or go way too deep. I have talked to her so many times but she doesn't stop. The family has taken their concerns with me also and have straight up told her to stop. The big turning point was when my mom and her daughters, my sisters, went to visit deceased family member. It's a tradition between the three of them. Well, Lily heard about it and went. It went very poorly and my sisters dislike Lily now also. We are invited to events and are still in the family but the women of the family keep their distance. There is a girls' trip around Christmas and she wasn't invited. This made my wife very upset and was ranting. I had enough when Lily said she was her kid. I snapped and told her my mother will never be her mom and you need to stop. She ended up crying and now I feel guilty. I just don't know how to get it through her head that she needs to stop. I've talked with her so many times and she is already in therapy. AITA for refusing to apologize for every little mistake that annoys my husband. My husband 37M and I 27F have been married for 4 years. He is easily agitated when things don't go his way and has a hard time accepting deviations from his expectations or plans. In his words, I am clumsy and absent, which is true to an extent. But I try my best not to make the same mistakes. However, doesn't matter how hard I try, I still do. My strength lies somewhere else. I grew up not required to do housework. Spent majority of time studying, that's why I have better income and more financially organized. I learned to do housework, cooking and general practical things in my adulthood. The problem is that he wants me to apologize for every mistake I've made. His face and voice would completely change, looks at me like I'm his child, say things like I don't need your explanation and excuses. What are you supposed to say? You're sorry. Instances of mistakes include burning a stainless steel pan that we just bought, food stuck on it with some discoloration which later on all came off. Forget to put the shower head back to its place after shower because it can cause damage to the shower head in the long run. Didn't plan a trip properly. The worst of all, he would call me stupid, useless, failure, what a child, spoiled princess and more insulting languages. I apologized in the earlier times but it seemed to only justify his attitude to educate me. Even though I felt apologetic for my doing, after being talked down by him and seeing his face change, I just don't want to apologize anymore. So I started to refuse. I am making an effort with visible improvement. I am now doing most of the housework and cooking and has been more aware of details. Sometimes it takes time to learn and maybe after 3-5 times of repeating the same mistakes, I truly learn. He gets really upset if I don't apologize, but I get really anxious and guilty when his face changes. I just wish that he's more tolerant seeing that I'm working on myself. He claims that not apologizing is the reason why he calls me these insulting things which he thinks are just truth. I told him I'm considering a divorce because I can't handle his abusive language. Despite he's been a supportive and caring husband all these years. He moved country for me and took care of me physically all the time. He is a kind person, but he just has his baggage from childhood that he needs to realize and resolve on his own. Unfortunately, he's not curious and inquisitive enough to look into that. Of course, I know there's no excuse for his verbal abuse, but is this Norma justifiable for wanting an apology for every mistakes? AITA for refusing to attend my sister-in-law's wedding, asking my in-laws to get out of my house. My 28N wife Anuradha 28F and I were married a while ago. Both of us are of Indian descent, but we are born and brought up in the USA. It was a love marriage, although she had to exclusively ask for their approval. My in-laws pulled off a joke that could have ruined my career. I work for the government as an attorney. They thought it would be funny to tell a few of my neighbors that if they require anything from me, all they have to do is offer me money as I take bribes. Some of them even asked me about it to actually offer me bribes, and I was floored. I had to refute that completely, and accosted them. They said they were just joking, but I said that I don't care if it was a joke, and that I don't want anything to do with the family anymore except for Anuradha. My sister-in-law, Kartika 29F, even defended them. That was some time ago. I haven't talked to them ever since, and now Anuradha told me that they are coming over to make an announcement for Kartika's wedding and to invite us. I told them that I don't want them at my house, but she said that they had already left. They came over in the evening and invited us formally. I let them know that I will not be attending and asked them to get out of my house. They accused me of disrespecting them and said it's been a year and it's not good on you to hold a grudge for so long. I was having nothing of it, however, and in the end they had to leave the house. My wife's understanding of why I did that, although she said that it was uncalled for and that she wants to attend her sister's wedding, she doesn't want to leave without me. AITA for refusing to give up my Christmas leave for a colleague who has kids. So context, my office closes over Christmas and generally opens around the 2nd-3rd of January. This year we were instructed to put in our leave request up until the 2nd, and put a second request through for any additional days after that, and they would approve additional days after the 2nd once everyone had applied and they got LSSS how many staff they would have. I put in until the 8th of January, as did 3-5 of my colleagues. One is coming back the 2nd and another one didn't put in any extra days, so they approved it. The one who didn't put in any extra days has since gone to the managers and said she wanted to take off until the 8th also because she wants to spend time with her kids. They're like 8, 9 and her husband. My bosses declined as they needed 2 staff members here and it hadn't been put in beforehand. Colleagues said she wasn't put in the extra days already, but the rest of the team knew and did it. Bosses said the only way she could have it off was if she could get another staff member to come back early. She asked me in a passive-aggressive email because Christmas holidays are about being with family and because I don't have children I could come back on the 2nd and swap with her. I declined, saying that I had plans for that time and she lost it. She has been going around saying that I ruined her holiday plans and am being inconsiderate of people with families and children. AITA for refusing to watch my stepsister on my day off. Repost because bot deleted it. I 24F work 50-60 hours a week. My boyfriend and I have our own place. My sister 24F works a lot too and also has her own place with her husband. My mom has an annoying habit of asking my sister and I for favors with very little notice. Both of us have dropped everything and cancelled our plans because my mom needed us to watch our stepsister. We have asked her so many times to give us enough of a heads up to avoid making conflicting plans. She won't listen. My stepsister lives with my parents. She's disabled physically as well as mentally, and can't be left home by herself. Next week, my boyfriend and I are going on vacation. I only have 1 weekday off before then, and it's filled with appointments that I need to go to before vacation. Last week, during Thanksgiving, my mom asked my sister and I if one of us could watch my stepsister this Thursday, my day off, from noon to midnight because she and my stepdad are going to a concert. I told her I have appointments that day, and still have to get up at 5 a.m. the next day for work. My sister said she could, but would need to change around some plans, and advocated for me, saying that I work early the next day. Last night, my mom called me and said I'm her last hope. My sister has the flu and can't babysit. I told her that I'm really sorry, but I have appointments that I need to go to before going out of town next week, and that it's my only day to do it. Also that I still work early the next day. I told her that I would have made my plans around that day if I'd known ahead of time. Maybe like when she bought the tickets months ago. She got mad that I wouldn't just cancel my plans for her. I apologized a lot and all she said were things like, "Yeah, thanks a lot." Since then, I've been feeling so guilty. I'm trying to figure out how to rearrange my day so that I can help her out, but nothing is going to work. I feel selfish for not dropping everything to help. I feel like an asshole. So I'm here to ask, am I the asshole? AITA for saying you shouldn't touch girls to my 10-year-old son. I 32F my husband 34 meters have 3 kids, 2 teenager girls and a 10-year-old boy. Last week, I spotted him on the playground putting his arm around a girl from his class, and when I asked him about it he said she was his girlfriend. My husband laughed and told him don't break too many hearts. I asked my son if he had asked the girl if it was okay before he put his arm around her and he said no. I gently explained to him that he should never touch girls like that without getting their consent first. He didn't know what consent meant, so I had a mini discussion with him about how it's not nice to touch people without their permission, and asking first means that you know the other person doesn't mind. My husband was silent during the entire conversation. My son didn't seem to be bothered by our small talk, which only lasted a couple of minutes, replied with okay and then went to go play his Switch. After he left the room my husband went off on me, saying that I'm making my son sound like a predator in the making, that it's just innocent playground fun, and that I'm blowing it way out of proportion. I obviously don't think my 5th grader is a predator, but I felt like it was important to teach him about the idea of consent from a young age. However, I do have a complicated history when it comes to this subject, so maybe that's clouding my judgment. So, AITA for sending him a bill for $1,000 after him and his kid are all our food. I've been seeing Jack for 2 years now, but we live separately due to the kids and just wanting to make sure this is 100 all in before uprooting them. I have 2 sons 13, twins, and 1 daughter 11. He has 1 daughter 13. We do weekend stays together twice a month so far and there's never been any major issues honestly. The girls have gotten into a few petty arguments, but other than that, no big problems. I spend around $1,000 a month in food, and that covers me and my kids Jack and his daughter for the 2 visits a month. I do a lot of meal prep and couponing. Last month my mother asked me and my kids to go to her place in Louisiana to help her move out of her home and into a 50 community. It made me feel more comfortable to have my house occupied in my absence to keep the dehumidifiers and everything running. Huge moisture issues and I don't want anything to mold or rust, so I asked Jack if he and his daughter wanted to stay at my place for 2 weeks in our absence to keep everything running smoothly. I gave it a 2-week time frame but was unsure of how long it would actually take. I knew the drive alone would be 2 days there and 2 days back. He agreed. I did my monthly shop before leaving and spent $1,092. I told them they could have some of my food when we were gone, so maybe this is my fault. But anyways, We got back 2 days ago, 4 days before the 2-week mark, and found my house in ruin, practically. Dirty dishes on the counters and table. Dirty clothes throughout the living room and bedrooms, mine and my daughter's, where they slept. I keep my house clean, so this caused a lot of panic on my end. Grew up in a hoarder house, so I take pride in a clean home. But the one thing that truly tipped me over the edge was finding that they went through at least 90 of the food I bought before leaving, in less than 2 weeks. We were left with a single pack of hamburger, all the veggies and a few boxes of pasta. Jack started scrambling when we entered the home, saying, "Sorry, I was gonna clean before you got back, but I didn't expect you so soon." I just gave a hushed "please leave." He and his daughter left, but after giving it some thought, I told him he had to reimburse us the $1,000 worth of food that he and his daughter ate. I told him their intake was absolutely repulsive. That I said he could have not eat everything in the house and leave us with nothing. He said that he had allowed his kid to have her friends over and they are a lot, but he shouldn't have to give me $1,000. Given that I told him they could eat the food. That I have more than enough money, true, and he doesn't, also true. I still want to be reimbursed, however. And yes, we split up. AITA. This may make me sound bad, but I wouldn't consider him house sitting as doing me any favors. All he has to do was dump out the dehumidifier when it got full. I could have asked my neighbor to do that for $200. He and his daughter live in a small apartment, and coming to my house feels like a vacation to them. Their words, not mine. I have a 2-story home with 6 bedrooms on the beach, with a hot tub, a game room, cable and high-speed internet. They were essentially getting a free vacation, and the only thing they had to do was dump the dehumidifier once a day. I more or less asked for the $1,000 based off principle alone. I don't expect him to give me the money, but since he was not understanding my viewpoint on why it was acceptable, I asked him for the $1,000 so he could open his eyes and understand how big of a deal it truly is. I did the big shop before leaving because I had work obligations scheduled for when I returned, and going out and doing a big shop in the middle of 4 showings and mandatory seminars would have been a nightmare. I didn't buy any fridge stuff outside of what I knew they would eat. Everything I bought was non-perishables, box dinners and meat for the freezer. I didn't leave him over the food. I left him because after I tried explaining why this was wrong of him, he accused me of throwing my privilege money in his face, knowing he's not as financially stable as me and making him and his daughter feel bad for doing nothing wrong. I have never thrown money in his face, never asked him for anything, and have paid for everything in the past 2 years because he could not. Helped him with multiple bills, things his daughter needed without question. So, he made me feel stupid, and I won't tolerate it. AITA for siding with my daughter that she doesn't need to invite her sister to the popular table. Both of my daughters are in high school. My oldest Cindy is 16 and my youngest Emily is 14. Now Cindy is quite popular. She is on the volleyball team and has a huge friend group. My youngest isn't very popular, and her friend Beth is her main friend or ex-friend. It also doesn't help that she is into hobbies most other high schoolers don't care about. Emily and Beth got into a fight and Beth is not speaking to her anymore. She is sitting alone at lunch now. This came out yesterday, and my husband wants Cindy to invite her to sit with her group of friends at the popular table. Cindy refused, saying she doesn't want to do that. My husband was mad, but when he tried to get me to back him up, I told him Cindy has every right to not want her little sister in her friend group. That you can't do that to her, and Emily needs to make her own friends. My husband is pissed at me and Cindy. Emily is super upset that she doesn't have people to eat with, and I am wondering if I made the right call or if I am being a jerk. AITA for taking my wife's side. For short context, my wife and I, both 26F, are lesbians living in a red state. This incident happened last month and it's still causing issues. A couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, we got the news that several young nieces and nephews would be coming. The last time my wife and I have seen any of them was when they were still in diapers, so we were excited to see them. Fast forward to a couple of days before Thanksgiving, we get a call from my mother wanting to talk about Thanksgiving dinner. She was telling us how she was planning on introducing my wife and I as friends. This is your aunt's friend, name. We both looked at each other in discomfort, and I asked my mom why, and she said, well, because they're still so young and they don't need any confusion right now. I suggested that she could introduce us properly, and if the kids questioned it, she could explain to them later or use the "I'll tell you when you're older" thing. My wife and I would have been completely fine with that, but no, she didn't want any middle ground in it. She was sticking to her guns, her actual words. Then she asked us what the big deal was, and we told her that we're married, not just friends. My wife added that introducing us as friends would be disrespectful to our marriage and to us. We deserve to be recognized as a couple just like every other couple that was there. We would have to interact with each other differently and act like we're friends when we're clearly much more than that. And the fact that she was telling us that she was in fact doing it instead of asking us how we felt about it added to our discomfort. This didn't convince her, and she was still bent on protecting the kids. So my wife calmly said that if we can't be treated equally, then we wouldn't be coming. I agreed to that and took my wife's side. None of this was said to my mother in a rude way. This made my mother furious. She ranted about how she bought enough food for everyone including us and how she was cooking our favorite sides. I told her that it was all pointless if she was just going to drive an invisible wedge between us the whole time, and that I was sorry but I was taking my wife's side on this. Hung up. We had our own Thanksgiving with my wife's family and a lot of our friends, but since then, my mother has not let it go. Blowing up my phone constantly, guilting me, talking about how everyone asked where my wife and I were, to which she said that we bailed last second. It is December now and she'll mention it at least twice a day. Now I am starting to think that I was in the wrong and that I should have talked to my wife about it, but I didn't know what else to do. AITA X200B X200B. AITA for telling my 18-year-old cousin I don't want her or her family at my wedding, and this shouldn't come as a big surprise to her. My cousin Ally 18F is my Aunt Laura's daughter. Sadly, Laura died when Ally was only 5 months old after a sudden asthma attack. I was very close to Aunt Laura. She helped my parents out a lot when I was born and my mom was going through cancer treatments. When my mom returned to work she continued to help, and until her death I was at her house every day after school. I'm 25 BTW. Laura's husband Joe, Ally's dad, remarried when Ally was 2. I remember my family being so happy for Joe and Ally and knew Laura would be glad they had someone else to love them. Things soured when Ally was about 5 and she started telling us that her mom and dad said Laura was no mother to her and her mom was a more real mom. She also said that her mom had done way more for her than Laura ever had, and it was a disgrace to credit Laura for being her mother. Some of the stuff she said was not that of a kid her age, but she would also say that her parents said Laura wasn't her real mom and stuff of that nature. It crushed our family because everyone had supported Joe and his second wife. She ended up adopting Ally when she was 4, and it seems like it wasn't long after that when they started making Laura seem completely unimportant, to the point where Ally would say Laura meant nothing to her. She hated that we loved Laura and her mom was better, so we should swap Laura for her. The bad blood ran deep and courts were involved so we could still see Ally. We did not welcome her family though. Ally would always speak so rudely regarding Laura. She told different family members to take down photos of Laura and put up family photos instead. She told us we were cruel to her mom for making it seem like Laura was more of her mommy than her. As a teen she got worse, and she told me once that I was so weird for talking about Laura like she was still here or like she wasn't years gone. Ally knew Laura had been such a huge part of my life. She yelled at my younger brother 15 for saying once that I would name my baby Laura if I had a daughter. This was only last year and my brother was 14 at the time. I decided when talking to my fiancée that I did not want to invite Ally for her to shit all over Laura at my wedding. A photo of Laura will be included in the wedding alongside my fiancée's brother and grandparents who passed away a few years ago. I knew she would. She would also demand I invite her parents and siblings. Ally confronted me over the lack of invite. She said she's either family or she isn't and I'm being a dick. I told her I don't want her there, and it should come as no surprise since she thinks I'm weird for loving my aunt who practically helped raise me when I was little, and since she hates my aunt so much that she wants no traces of her. I told her there will be more than traces at my wedding, and since she feels so offended by that I'm saving us all the heartache of listening to her. She called me a bitch and said I hate her for loving her real mom. AITA for telling my 27F family the reason I'm sick. For context, I'm allergic to seafood. I don't have an anaphylactic reaction, but I break out into severe hives and have terrible stomach problems when I eat it. My sister recently graduated from college and decided to hold a party. Problem was, it was a seafood party and there were no other options at the restaurant she chose, which was a seafood restaurant. I spoke to her about bringing my own food, but she said she'd prefer if I didn't, and when I contemplated going, she said I don't get anaphylactic and nothing happens just from being near the food, so I have no excuse not to attend. I thought no biggie, I'm not at risk just from being close to the food and I can go eat elsewhere or something after the meal is over so I could be there for my sister. Problem is, I worked a 30-hour shift and was on call on a very busy day, so I couldn't find time to have anything outside of a protein bar. By the time my shift ended, it was almost time for the party, so I couldn't prep anything to eat beforehand or wait for delivery. I decided to eat a small amount at the party since I was famished and pick out the seafood. I just quickly got ready and had a Benadryl to help with the hives and asked my husband to place an order for liquid 4 that would be delivered the next day to help hydrate after the inevitable stomach problems I'd have. Well, picking out the seafood didn't work and I still got sick, but not too bad thanks to my preparation, but I was out of it the next day and very dehydrated. My mom asked me to come over since the whole family was there for the first time since COVID started, and I declined. I told her I was dead tired from the shift and party, but she kept trying to convince me to come. I told her I wasn't well and she started to accuse me of making up excuses. I eventually snapped and told her I'd had seafood and had a reaction, so I was sick and couldn't make it. My sister for some assumed it was a dig at her and I was cribbing about not being accommodated on our big day. Not once did I even mention the word or make scene. I also made it very clear it was my responsibility since I knowingly ate seafood, but she's been calling me some choice names for making her look inconsiderate. She told me I should have kept my mouth shut and not told people why I'm sick and should have cited other reasons to not have made it to the family get-together. AITA added to answer some of the most common questions. Points 1. I do not live in the US. The nature of my work does not have a fixed meal time. 2. I could not just skip the event due to it being held to celebrate my baby sister. The whole family was expecting my presence. 3. Liquid 4 is a brand for soluble electrolyte powder, not real medical intravenous equipment. 4. The non-seafood options were mostly bread rolls and dessert. I am a diabetic, so dessert was off the table and the bread was cooked in the same space as the seafood, so I would have gotten sick anyways. 5. I have no doubt that I am TA to myself, and as mentioned in the post, I take responsibility for what happened to me. 6. I had about 20 minutes between coming home from my shift and having to leave for the party. Delivery where I live takes over 30 minutes and there was the expectation that I would have to be on time as a core family member. 7. My question was not about how I treated myself, rather whether and was TA for telling my family why I was sick, since my sister assumed I was calling her out and making her look bad. 8. I spoke to the restaurant when I had a little time and they said they serve exclusively seafood and anything like bread and salads were cooked in the same kitchen vicinity as the seafood and so would have been equally sickening. 9. I am aware how stupid of a move it was. I was simply trying to do everything and be there for my family, which I realize on hindsight came at the cost of my well-being. 10. This was her day and she absolutely loves seafood. I didn't want to look entitled by asking her to change the location. Could I have gotten food after the event? No, it was quite late and most fast food joints had closed. We moved to the restaurant's bar, which closed at 12 a.m. At around 9 p.m. and they didn't have anything outside cocktail nuts, which also give me stomach problems. I was on my way home at 12:15 and no restaurants or fast food joints were open and I was frankly too tired to go out of my way to find a place. AITA for telling my brother the reason his kid is bullied and unpopular is due to him. My brother is the type of person who decides to be their true self without anyone's opinions. He expresses this a ton with clothes. He will wear outrageous stuff often and his job is online, so he wears his clothes often. Think Lady Gaga type of clothes. One day he is in a dress and the next he is wearing skin suit. This wasn't a problem until recently, when he started to drop off his son for carpool. My daughter goes to the same school and I used to drive both of them. Ever since he started to do this, he just embarrassed his kid. My daughter refuses to carpool with him and wakes up early for the bus. Now what I got from my daughter is he is known as the kid with the weird dad and bullied for it. She also informed me that she will not be helping him since she doesn't want it coming onto her since it's her uncle. I'm a little disappointed she won't stand up to them, but I also don't blame her for not wanting to get involved. It was bad today and my brother called me ranting that my daughter should stand up for him. I told him the reason his kid is bullied is due to him and he needs to send him on the bus or stop embarrassing him. He's pissed I blame him and being against his artist freedom. He thinks I am a huge jerk. AITA for telling my cousin she's overstayed her welcome. About 2 months ago, my older cousin 27F and her BF 25M moved into my house because of certain circumstances. I happily accepted them into my home because me and her were always close growing up. I'm 26 years old right now. I work part-time while still making enough to pay all my bills and still have more than enough to spend on myself. My cousin on the other hand lost her job and her boyfriend is still pulling the I'm trying to work on my business crap. For the first couple of weeks everything was fine. It wasn't until a full month had passed that I noticed that they weren't exactly the tidy type. I didn't have OCD or anything, so I just kindly told them to start picking up behind themselves and maybe do some chores around the house since they weren't paying rent. For the next few weeks it was nice and they did everything I asked of them. It wasn't until the 2-month mark hit that I completely lost it. I had went out of town for just a week to meet up with some friends for a wedding and a little time to myself. During that time they had somehow listed my house on Airbnb and I came back to it almost completely trashed. I, of course, yelled at everyone involved and said some very not nice things, but can you blame me? My house was very beautiful and costed a pretty penny. The two were almost always respectful, so I'd never expected them to pull something like that. I called her mom and explained everything to her and tried my best not to just completely throw them out because I didn't want them to become homeless. I guess during my phone call she decided to make a few of her own. I had gotten some very nice and peaceful phone calls from multiple family members cussing me out and saying that my cousin had called them crying and said that I was trying to throw them out for trying to make some money. I said F it and told her you have overstayed your welcome and is trying to play victim. I want you out by morning. Ever since then I've been getting many phone calls and text messages blaming me for the whole fiasco. So, AITA for telling my coworker I won't watch her kids. I 28F work in an office setting. but I travel occasionally for work. On these occasions, I always bring my girlfriend, Sadie 32F with me, and we make it a mini vacation. I would say I travel maybe 9 times a year, and each time is maybe for 5 to 10 days. The company I work for pays for travel, living, and food expenses. Anything I don't use is paid out, but with 2 of us, we easily use it all. I should also note, I've been with this company for nearly 10 years, did schooling through them, and worked hard for my position. I have a coworker 36F, Sue, who is a mom of 4 kids under the age of 8. Sue has been with the same company for 15 years and as long as I've known her, I've only considered her an acquaintance. She often gives me grief about not having kids and how I'm lucky. The issue happened a few days ago when I rejected a travel job and Sue begged my boss to let her try. He caved because it was an emergency and I had already scheduled off for Thanksgiving. Sue made all her arrangements and asked if I could watch her kids for the week she's gone. I told her no, because I'll be traveling, and she told me this will be a great way for me to experience the joy of having children. I told her no, I don't want to watch her kids because I enjoy my kid-free life and I refuse to travel with kids. We went back and forth a bit before I told her to stop asking me because my decision is final and I won't compromise Sadie's trip just because she got a wild hair up her ass to do something she's not nearly qualified enough to do. I did not tell her the last part. I just said I don't want to compromise Sadie's trip because she's hosting with her mom. From the grapevine, I heard her husband drove their kids an hour to her parents' house before leaving. A few of my co-workers are saying that I was very cold for not helping her out, since she only wanted to experience what I do. My boss thinks I'm in the right because I shouldn't compromise the PTO I placed in advance months ago for something she planned less than a week ago. Sadie is 50-50, saying she understands that Sue gets under my skin often, but that we could have done the trip with them and survived. AITA X200B edit: the reason Sue's husband didn't take the kids. Invited him to go on the trip with her. He's actually a pretty cool guy, even though I've only met him half a dozen times. AITA for telling my dad it's not my job to make sure my half-siblings have a mom. My parents divorced when I 17 meters was 5. I'm not sure on why. Part of me has always figured dad cheated on mom because he was with someone suspiciously fast afterward, like that same month fast. But my mom never spoke about it. She just told me both she and dad loved me and that would never change and I would never have to choose between my parents. My dad was in 2 live-in relationships post-divorce. When I was 7 he was with Jen and had Luna 9 with her, and then when I was 10 he was with Bree and had Harry 7 with her. Jen and Bree both stopped being moms to their kids and so my dad became a single full-time parent to my half-siblings. From that point onward my dad has tried to convince mom she could step up and at least fill some kind of female role model relationship with them. He also corrects me on the half-siblings term and says we're just siblings, and if I were to call them just my siblings, it might soften mom's heart to being a female or maternal figure for them. He would ask mom on my behalf to let me have my half-siblings over to her house during her custody time. My parents share equal time with me. He would claim I really missed my half-siblings when I was gone and he would claim I wanted to spend every holiday with them, etc. None of this is true. I never said those things or implied them. Luna is having a really hard time having no female family members. She has a dad, 2 half-brothers and an uncle. So dad has been more forceful about mom's part in all of this lately and now he is trying to rope me in more. He sat me down recently and told me my half-siblings deserve to have moms and I could help them with that. I could share my mom and let them feel the love they deserve to feel. He said I have always treated them like lesser siblings. First with always using half and then with not trying to include them in my life at my mom's house. He told me this is where my role as big brother needs to really take off. In response I told him it's not my job and has never been my job to provide my half-siblings with a mom. I told him it was on him and their actual moms to do that. And I told him it was sick how he kept trying to rope my mom in. I told him to accept that he only had 1 kid with mom and she was only obligated to care for me. His answer to that was I was disappointing him with both my response and lack of concern for the overall well-being of my half-siblings, and he told me to do better, be better and care more about my innocent little siblings. I told my mom about it and she tore dad a new one for putting this on me. She told me I am not wrong in what I said to him, but my uncle also said I could have more compassion for my innocent half-siblings. AITA for telling my dad's wife that she's getting her karma and to leave me out of it. I-15FM my dad's affair baby. My mom didn't know he was married and broke it off when she found out, but she was already pregnant. She decided to have me and has always been a great mom to me. A lot of my friends don't get along with their moms, but mine is really cool and I wouldn't trade her for anyone. My dad takes me out on the weekends to do things and visits on holidays, but I've never lived with him or anything. When I was younger he had to take me to his house for a few hours one time when my mom was really really sick, and his wife yelled at him and I had to stay in a bedroom away from her because she was so mad. My mom explained the cheating when I was older and realized how weird the situation was compared to friends with divorced parents. I have feels about it, but he's my dad, so I try to not think about it a lot. I know my dad's wife hates me and is the reason I can't see him more, so yeah, she has a reason to be mad at him, but also screw her. So a couple of months ago, my dad started asking if I would like to spend whole weekends with him. I said I would be okay with it if it wasn't at his house. He said his wife wants me to come and she's had a change of heart. Sounded really sus, so I said no. Then this weekend she wanted to come have lunch with my dad and me. She said that she realized how important I am to my dad since they can't have kids now and that she would like to make up for it all and be my stepmom if I would let her. It really made me mad because my whole life she's made it really hard to see my dad and now she wants to be nice? I might be because I told her that if she can't have kids that's karma for how she treated me and she's never going to be anything but my dad's wife. She started crying and my dad told me later that was a terrible thing and I need to apologize. My mom said that she put me in an unfair situation and I should probably avoid talking to her right now because she's having to deal with infertility and hasn't really gotten over things. AITA? I feel like she kind of deserved it. AITA for telling my daughter who is facing homelessness that only her and the baby can move in with me, not her husband. The husband has lived in their apartment for a number of years. The owners recently sold it and the new ones are moving in, so my daughter and her husband have to move. The problem is rents have gone up dramatically. The rent they are paying is $1,100 for a one-bedroom, which I thought was a lot, but now that I'm trying to help them find a place, most are now going for around $2,000 a month or more. They can't afford this. My daughter knows she is always welcome at home. Granted, a baby complicates things. I wasn't happy about her having a baby. She's young, just turned 22, but I would never deny her housing. However, I can't stand her husband. Let's just call him Aaron for simplicity's sake. I wouldn't invite Aaron over for dinner, let alone let him live with me. Aaron's in his mid-30s. Criminal history. Hair trigger temper. Chronically immature and has one hell of a jealous possessive streak that has caused strain in their relationship, which I obviously do not approve of. Honestly, when she told me she was pregnant, I finally thought we'd be rid of Aaron. I genuinely thought he's exactly the kind of man to ditch. They've been on and off over and over since she was about 18-19. Alas, if anything it made him cling to her tighter. They had a very rushed wedding and this is their longest stint together without any breakups. Just over a year. There's still been a fair share of dramatics, of course, but I am surprised they've made it this far. Even so, I simply don't want to live with Aaron. I don't like him. I don't want him around me. I'd go above and beyond for my daughter and the baby. They can stay as long as they need, but not him. Obviously, this has created a rift between my daughter and I. She doesn't want to live separately from Aaron. I told her then she needs to figure out alternative arrangements. Well, their move-out date is rapidly approaching the 15th of December and they've still not been able to find a place, and she's panicking. She's been begging me to let them stay. I reiterated my terms. Aaron simply cannot stay here. This led to a lot of tears and some angry words. Namely, me being an asshole. I can genuinely see why she might think that, but I also have to think about myself and my own sanity. X200B. AITA for telling my friend's BF that he shouldn't have been allowed to eat. Some friends and I decided to do the trend where we have a dinner, and everybody brings a food that starts with the first letter of their name. There is one friend of ours that's a bit of a moocher. Whenever we go out she never pays for stuff, whether it's the dinner bill, tickets for the movies, etc. We always end up paying for her, but everyone accepted this and doesn't really have an issue with it. However, recently, it's become worse. She's been dating this guy for a couple of months and she brings him everywhere with her, even when he's not invited. So now we have two people to pay for. Also, I feel like I have to say that they have jobs. They're not struggling. It'd be different if they were broke. Then of course I wouldn't mind. But yeah, we had the dinner last night and everybody brought food and put a lot of effort into it. These two however showed up with absolutely nothing, not even a bottle of soda. We were annoyed but nobody said anything. It wasn't until the end of the night when they were leaving, that I cracked a little. The friend's BF was taking home all the barbecue ribs that were left. I repeat, all of it, and it was a lot. Like damn, be considerate at least. He emptied the entire tray of ribs into a container. That's when I politely asked, can you maybe not take all of it? The others might want some too. He got all defensive and asked, why are you treating me like I'm stealing all the food? I clarified that I never said such a thing and that I only asked that he didn't take all of it. He got angry, plopped the ribs back and said, fine, I don't need your food, to which I replied, it kinda seems like you do, and to be honest, you shouldn't have eaten at all since you didn't contribute again. As usual. Then my friend came, took him and just left without saying anything. Now apparently, she's angry with us. Mainly me. Most of my friend group doesn't think I did anything wrong, but but there are a couple who are saying that I shouldn't have said anything. The thing is that I didn't even say anything to my friend because I don't mind that she doesn't contribute. Her boyfriend was the one irritating me. He eats the most food but doesn't contribute, drinks the most alcohol, doesn't contribute, orders really expensive meals at restaurants, doesn't contribute towards the bill. I guess I got kind of annoyed and snapped at him. I tried phoning her to clarify that I don't have any issue with her, but she's ignoring me. I didn't know. Maybe I should have left well enough alone. AITA for telling my friend's sister that my friend's wedding is not about her. This is a really low stakes situation, but I just wanted some other perspectives in case I'm in the wrong here. My 25F close friend Robin 23F just got engaged to her long-term partner a few weeks ago. Her partner 24M asked me for some help with setting up the proposal and the whole thing was lovely. Since then they have been having a look at Pinterest for color schemes and venues, but no actual planning yet. For a little background on Robin's sisters 17F and 25F, they can be a little much. Robin has always been the quietest one of the three, and while she gets along fine with them, I wouldn't say they're super close. Her sisters can sometimes say or do things that are a little out of line, and they just expect Robin to accept it and not say anything. I have met the younger sister before, and she does seem to expect things to go her own way. Now my husband and I were at Robin's house a few days after their engagement and her younger sister stopped by quickly with her boyfriend. She was talking about the wedding and said something along the lines of, "Well, we all know it's mostly going to be about me anyway." She said it quite straight-faced, and while I figured she was probably joking, I knew she'd made comments like this in the past that had upset Robin. So I said back, "I think your sister's wedding will be about her, not you." I definitely meant this as a joke, and thought I had used a joking tone. She left shortly after. I've since found out she was quite angry at my comment, and has told her mom and oldest sister. Robin knows it was a joke, and has said she actually appreciated me standing up for her. Her sisters however now don't want me involved in any aspect of the wedding planning, and have said it should really be a family thing anyway. Some of her other family have commented I was harsh and that she's just a kid. In my eyes, it was intended as a joke, but also I think 17 is old enough to know what may be an inappropriate thing to say, and understand that her comment hurt her sister's feelings. I'm starting to feel bad though, so AITA for telling my future Dill not to do it again instead of saying "I forgive you." My eldest is going to get married soon, and I have a beautiful wedding dress that I have promised my daughter that she can wear. It's basically a beaded ball gown. I have issues with my future Dill. Nothing major, but she has spread words I didn't say. I'm only 44. At the beginning I thought she was just misunderstand what I was saying, or I did say something that made her mad, so I started to only interact with her through texts or when other people are around. I haven't had to use any of my messages until now. She tried to call me earlier this week and I told her I was busy and to text it. I am glad I did. She wanted to use my wedding dress and do alterations to it. I told her no, since I promised my daughter that it is hers. The next day I got a ton of texts from family members about me not being welcoming and telling her that she isn't my kid. I got so many that I just screenshot the texts and sent it to all the family. Whole family was upset she lied to them. I got on a FaceTime call with my son and her. My daughter was in the room during this. She gave an apology and I told her not to do it again. Now my son and her are pissed that I didn't say "I forgive you." AITA for telling my mom that her tattoo hurts my feelings. My 16F mom 47F and sister 21F got matching tattoos. This has been the plan since my sister first turned 18, and I was aware of this. Their plan was to get matching suns, and when I was 18, I'd get matching moons with my mom. All of this was fine, until my mom and sister came home today with their tattoos. They had a half of a sun and half of a moon. I smiled and said they were pretty, and tried leaving. My mom asked what was wrong and I told her that her getting a moon with my sister hurt my feelings, as that was always the plan for me and her. She suggested that I get the same tattoo they got and all three of us could match. I said it isn't the same now that my sister has it, and it took the novelty away. She called me dramatic and said we'd find something else to get, which is true, but it still hurt my feelings that she got the moon with my sister. So, AITA for telling my mom that her tattoo hurt my feelings? AITA for telling my mother it's her fault she doesn't get to see me. My 16 meters mother 46 married her new husband 22 meters 2 years ago. At first she visited me at my dad's. Since her husband doesn't like me, I have always outperformed his beloved brother at school and doesn't want me there. Dad said if she pays child support he'd let her visit every week, but she said she doesn't want to pay her ex-husband any money, so he let her visit once every few weeks. She agreed to that, in exchange for him not going to court. Then my dad adopted a cat. My mother is allergic to cats, so she asked him to get rid of her, so that she could visit me. Dad told her no, and that if she wants any further visits it should be at her place. She asked me if I could talk to my dad about getting rid of the cat, but I told her no as well. I told her instead of trying to control what dad does in his own house, she should control her own boy toy if she wants to see me. and that it is her own fault she decided to let someone less than half her age order her around. She then got upset and told me I didn't have to throw it in her face like that. Update: talked to her about it. She said she has to keep her husband happy, and I told her there is no way me and Dad are getting rid of our cat. So no more contact between us now. AITA: for telling my mother that she made her bed, now she has to lay in it because she is upset that our relationship has changed. 2 years ago, my mother started dating a man. Despite expressing our reluctance to meet him because she was serial dating, we did not want to get attached. They forced the situation, making my sisters and me uncomfortable. Shortly after, he began staying over regularly. My mother's personality changed significantly after meeting him. For example, he would make disgusting comments about my mother in front of us and she would just laugh. About a year ago, they came home after a date, and I, busy with a timed online university assignment, just shouted hello from my desk. 20 minutes later, with not a word to me or my sister, I heard the outside gate slam and them leaving just as I finished my assignment. I went out to check what was happening, but they were already gone. 10 minutes after they left, me and my sister received a horrible voice message where my mother accused us of being disrespectful and ungrateful and how we do not want her to be happy. She also accused us of not greeting either of them when they came inside, but we both did. She left for a week and a half, leaving us with 4 days worth of food in the freezer and no money for electricity or any way to get my sister to school during this week, and also no return date. She wanted us to apologize for being brats and not greeting them before she would consider coming back. When we finally talked, she insisted that we were disrespectful for not dropping everything and meeting them at the front door to greet them when they came back, and also that neither of us greeted them in any form. Not true, because I did and I heard my sister greet them as well. They are the ones who did not respond. The house was small, so it is improbable that they didn't hear us. Mind you that this subject was never broached previous to this incident, and in all the years my mother never required us to greet her at the door like a butler. The power was running low as well as the food, so we bit the bullet and apologized. Even though we clearly weren't guilty of what she was accusing us of. My sister was still in high school, and I was a first-year uni student, so neither of us had the financial capacity to keep a household running. During this talk I informed her that our relationship would never be the same. Recently, my mother questioned why our relationship remains distant. I reminded her that I had warned her about the lasting impact of our argument. Trust in her as a reliable parent was shattered, and I couldn't simply forget the 2 weeks she abandoned us based on false accusations. While she urged me to move on, I emphasized that she created this distance, and I couldn't force a connection that no longer existed. She is calling me an asshole for holding this over her head. She says that she's still my mother and deserves forgiveness, but despite her being my mother, I believe the trust has been irreparably damaged. She has given me no indication that she has changed. So, am I the asshole for what I said? AITA: for threatening to leave my stepson with his grandparents. My husband's first wife passed away when my son Joshua was 2. We met and later married when Joshua was 5. His maternal grandparents are still a large part of his life even now that he is 12. We have never tried to keep them away. My husband and I are now having our second child and Joshua has started acting up. It is strange because he is a loving and well-behaved boy. Lately he has been saying that I'm not his real mom and that he doesn't have to listen to me. I thought maybe he was saying what other kids in his school say to their step-parents. It would be odd since I've been his mom since he was 3.5. It turns out that his mother's parents are the ones telling him that. I don't know what started it, but I'm ending it. I spoke with my husband and he agreed with me. My husband works out of town and his in-laws are still relatively young and still work. I called them and said that since they were telling him he did not need to listen to me, I would be dropping him off with them. I provided his school and extracurricular schedule and told them I expected him to attend everything. I never spoke with Joshua about this. I never had any intentions of following through. They started fighting me immediately, saying that I had no right to kick him out. I said I wasn't kicking him out, but that I had a small child at home and was in my 3rd trimester. I wasn't going to deal with a kid my size that refuses to follow the house rules because of them. I said that I had copies of all the texts where they told him that he did not have to do as I said so they could deal with him when my husband is out of town. They do not have a child-friendly home. They have lots of small, expensive, breakable things all over. And his grandfather has professional clients in the house all the time. A 12-year-old would not be a good fit. They said that they were sorry for interfering and that they would tell him that they were wrong. I insisted on witnessing it, and I told them not to bring up the threat or I would follow through. They did it. Afterwards Joshua apologized for his behavior and said he was kind of lost since I was going to have a son of my own. I told him that he was my son and had been for a very long time. I could see them grinding their teeth. They seem to think that if I'm his mom then they are nothing. This whole thing is weird, but they are upset that I manipulated them into this position. AITA: AITA for wanting my sister to walk me down the aisle over my mother's husband. My older sister 30F has been like a mom to me 24F since our dad died when I was 6 and she was 12. Our mother was very absent after dad died. More absent. Dad was actually the stay-at-home parent for the two of us and he was the more involved parent in our lives. They were married. BTW. It was just our mother was the parent who preferred to work and was overall more like the stereotype of a dad who works and doesn't really do much for his wife or kids. So you can imagine how hard it was when our dad died. When I was 9 my mother met Gavin and they got married the day after my 10th birthday. He was very ready to fill the role of a dad in my life but I was used to my sister and didn't really go to him for stuff. Instead I chose my sister. I also disliked him for trying because it felt like he was replacing my dad. He was very unsure of himself and didn't really have the best guidance in my mother on anything like that. But I did not want him to be my parent and I think even with better advice I would have resisted that. He tried though and I can admit that and say I don't think he had any bad intentions generally. I'm sure it was hard for him to want more but for me to never want to try back. My sister and I both have a very low contact relationship with our mother as adults and I had planned on not inviting her to my wedding at all. But a family member suggested I should invite her for appearance's sake and be ready for her to maybe not come. With inviting her though, Gavin is also invited and when he heard I asked my sister to walk me down the aisle he asked me about possibly doing it or having the father-daughter dance. I told him I would be saving that dance for my sister so we could honor dad. He told me he would still like to do one of those things and that I am the closest he ever got to having a kid and he tried his best and he feels like I could do that much for him. I told him I want my sister. That she and dad were the only two parents I ever knew. I acknowledged he tried but I said I never wanted him to be my parent. He told me it was unfair to deny him this when I admit myself he tried. He said he feels like I take my mother's lack of parenting out on him. AITA for wanting reimbursed from a dog owner because I hit their unleashed dog. Early last week, I hit an unleashed dog while driving in my neighborhood about 15 houses from my house. I was not speeding and it was purely accidental. The dog is still alive but got hurt pretty bad. However, it fucked up my bumper a bit and the estimate is a few grand to replace. Because I think I was not at fault I went to the dog owner and asked for him to reimburse me or pay to fix the damage to my car. The guy got pissed, saying that I should have been more aware of my surroundings and that I should pay for his vet bills. He complained that his dog barely hung on and I'm a huge asshole for asking for him to pay for my car's damage. I pointed out that his dog wasn't leashed and there are leash laws in our town. I told him as far as I'm concerned the whole thing is his fault. He slammed the door in my face. AITA added I want the owner either to pay out of pocket if he doesn't want me to go through insurgents. If I do go through insurance I want my 1K deductible reimbursed. AITA if we decided not to give 50 of the wedding cash gifts to my in-laws and offer an apology after. We eloped a few months ago, super short ceremony. Photos and that's it. We have a business that's growing pretty quick and we wanted all our savings to go towards it. Reason why we decided not to go for a wedding party. Nevertheless, my in-laws wanted a party because of their traditions Middle Easterners. After back and forth, we agreed on it with the condition that we were not giving them money, which they agreed to that part. We went and checked out the event center in which the wedding party will be taking place and we discussed no money will be received from our side. My husband's dad joke about giving his wife my husband's mom some money from the wedding gifts in which she said no. This is y'all gift. My mother-in-law which I will be forever grateful was in charge of everything. As expected, we only showed up for the wedding. The wedding was full of their family and friends, which was okay with us, as that was not our money. Wedding day goes by. 2 days later we meet up with them to count the money and write how much each guest gave again. Middle Eastern tradition. After we finish counting, we ate and left. The crazy part comes now as we leave. The mom closes the door so hard that my husband and I looked at each other as WTF. 2 days later I'm COVID same as them. So my husband texted and called them with no answer or response. Few days later, we were informed that they are mad at us because we didn't give them money as agreed. I was like wait a minute. I made sure before we agreed to the party that they understood that there was no way they'll received money from us. Today, his brother calls and told him that they are waiting for an apology. Like why? So Reddit. Am I the asshole for not letting my husband apologize with his family and not even discussing the idea with him to give them part of the guest wedding gift money? Should we give them money? Update Wimta if I grounded my daughter for forging my signature? I've spent the last day reading so many comments. I was blown away by the sheer number of responses, and I tried my best to read each one and to respond to as many as possible. Most of the comments said that if I didn't at least reminder, and then blow up at her in a gotcha moment. I completely agreed with that. So I sent her a text as a reminder before school, and followed up with 2 more face-to-face reminders after school. Before I get to the update, I wanted to add that I did a lot of self-reflection as a person and a father based on the comments that I read. Some really stuck out to me as they talked about ADHD, discipline, and parenting. I've saved a few to help me keep reflecting and growing as a person. Additionally, I set up an appointment with my daughter's doctor to see if we should be considering an ADHD test. Now for the update. After the third time politely reminding her to see the form yesterday, I asked her if she had signed my name on it already. She said she did. She signed it shortly after I asked her to bring it home for me to sign. One of the great perspectives I got from the comments was that forging a parent's signature for something this inconsequential isn't really a big deal. Some people disagreed and said forgery is forgery, and that was the perspective I had at the time I made the first post. Not anymore though. She had let me know about the trip and I was okay with her going. Because of my reconsidered perspective, I didn't get mad when she told me. I did what many advised me to do, and I sat down with her and we talked. We discussed that forgery is a crime, but because she had let me know about the trip and I was okay with her going, that I was okay with what she did. We're not perfect, but we do try our best. My hope is that moving forward with our relationship, I'll try to guide her instead of getting mad. When we spoke last night, I made sure that I spoke calmly and not down to her. I said in a previous comment that I do think she's a good kid. She's got a lot on her plate right now, and I'm no longer interested in adding to that. I really want to thank the vast majority who offered their stories and considerations. One person questioned why I would even make this post, but I'm really glad I did. If I told a tattoo artist their tattoos are awful? So this has been happening for a few months now, almost a year, and I am at my wit's end and I just need some help. My darling dog died earlier this year and I've been wanting to get a memorial tattoo in her honor. For months I've talking and meet up with different artists until I found one I liked and trusted. While I was doing this, a friend of mine told me that his wife did tattoos. I was interested in the work, so I asked to see the portfolio. If I'm being honest, the work. So I politely told him that it's not really my style, but thank you for telling me about her. Now on to the problem. That conversation happened in January, and every single time I see him he goes, "Did you get the tattoo yet? If not, you should let my wife do it," and every time I would say, "No thank you." I found an artist I like and trust and he would glare at me. Then one time I ran into his wife and she asked me about the tattoo. I told her I haven't gotten it yet. Then she would go on about how she can do a much better job and she wouldn't charge me as much. I told her the same thing I've been telling her husband, that I found an artist I really like, and she goes, "Well, I have an artist I love and trust too, but I give other artists a chance too." I kinda got frustrated and just walked away. She overheard me talking about taking my niece out to get her eyebrow pierced, and she jumped in praising her piercing abilities and shows off her own ear piercing that looked like it was on the verge of falling out of her ear. I said I'd think about it and she finally stopped that day. I'm so tired of hearing how good she is from both of them almost every day. Why can't they take no for an answer? Am I the only one in the damn universe that wants a tattoo right now? Please help. I don't want to be mean to them, but I also want them to stop asking me. I think I maybe be the asshole cause I've just been beating around the bush instead of just saying I don't want work by her. Edit 1. Thank you everyone so much for all the advice and coaching me on what to say to them. I have an appointment to get my tattoo tomorrow. I'll update you guys if anything happens when my friend sees in.